Henshin a go-go, baby. What's good, guys? Yoku here. I know you've seen a lot of videos telling you the beginner tips and what to do in the beginning of Star Rail and how to improve your account. But from someone who played the beta, and I went into it completely blind, but I have a very familiar understanding of RPGs and RPG mechanics or turn-based games, I wanted to write down a list of mistakes that I made or would have made in the game and what to avoid. I can use this mostly as something as a check for myself to make sure that I don't do these when the game officially launches, but I figured I'd share those with you and for a lot of newer players who are not used to turn-based combat at all. If you're a veteran of turn-based RPGs, maybe this video isn't for you, and that's okay, but I'm sure you have some friends that you're trying to get into Star Rail, and feel free to send this video their way. Ultimately, this video serves as a purpose for people to look at things within the game, be very aware, play smart, be patient about things, and then adjust in order to get the best experience possible for them to enjoy the game. With that out of the way, here are the biggest mistakes to avoid in Honkai Star Rail. The list of mistakes are in no particular order. It doesn't go from top 1 to top 10 or top 10 to top 1. I'm just listing out the mistakes, and if they seem out of place or out of order, my bad. That stated, number 1 is going to be the obvious one, which is not allocating resources properly for your character upgrades or using too many for too many characters. It seems to be a pretty common trend nowadays where gacha games are just giving you 5-star characters pretty early on in the game, if not immediately. And in Honkai Star Rail, it's almost no differently. We have the beginner warp, which is basically the standard banner, but it's at a 10% reduced rate, and you're guaranteed to get a 5-star character after 50 pulls. With that 10% in mind, it means that you really only need to pull 40 times. You use 40 tickets, which the game gives you for free, and that's going to reward you with your first 5-star. There are a few people that are going to be, well, I guess maybe more than a few people, but a lot of people that will be doing re-rolling, and they will choose to do this on the standard banner. I advise not to do this because the fastest way to get your 5-star and see what it is will be through the beginner warp. And if you get it early, you still receive enough tickets to be able to go back to the standard banner and get another 5-star, giving you 2 5-stars within your first couple of weeks of playing the game. For the beginner warp, everyone is guaranteed their first 5-star character within just a few days of playing, so long as you aren't beating around the bush on purpose. If you're not re-rolling, focus on building and preparing your team around your first 5-star. If you get someone like Himiko is a great DPS character. She's going to focus mostly on AoE damage. And so from there, now you can look at, okay, which characters do I need or have in my account that are the free-to-play characters or someone else that you pulled from the 4-stars that I could build around supporting Himiko? How do I make Himiko do the most damage within the shortest amount of time as possible? And so because the game allows you to build into multiple characters relatively easily during World 1, it doesn't tell you that using all of this material could be used on other characters in the future once you get them into a more appropriate setting. When you start to unlock relics, when you start to unlock materials and things like that for your characters to upgrade, the bosses, things of the sort, you're going to want to use those on your main squad, the main units on your team. Hi. You trying to kiss, huh? You nasty. And speaking of relics, that's going to be my next point. Investing into relics too early that are not perfect. Once you unlock relics, it's going to be great to just go ahead and collect a 2-piece, 4-piece, play around with the sets that benefit your character, but you don't necessarily need to invest into them. And what I mean by that is you don't need to get them to +8 or +12, +15, unless it's something that has some really strong stats for your character. Once again, we'll use Himiko. Himiko is going to want something, well, she can have different builds, but let's go with break effect for now. You're going to want to focus on break effect, maybe attack percent, and some crit. If you end up pulling some relics from the lava forging set or even the break set, and you can use that towards Himiko and improving Himiko for what you want her to do on your team, well, if those substats, if those main stats are what you're looking for, then by all means, bump them up to +12 and then rock with them. Don't really touch them until you can start unlocking 5-star relic. I say this because eventually we're going to get to the grinding phase of Honkai Star Rail, and when you're grinding, similar to Genshin Impact, nothing is guaranteed, at least not without using the machine or other item to guarantee the main stat. So this is your future, not future self, telling you, the current self, to prepare for your future self and save your future self a lot of headache. Third is going to be the most obvious for me, which should be everybody in this case, but I know everybody doesn't do this, and that's totally okay. Don't spend Stellar Jades on the standard banner unless you're, well, rich. Don't do it. The Stellar Jades are going to be what you need for premium currency, whether that be the character or the light cone. And in Honkai Star Rail, I'm a huge advocate for actually pulling for light cones. Unlike Genshin Impact, where the game is mostly focused around the characters, and if you just happen to get some other type of item, then you're good. I do think that the characters in Honkai Star Rail will be viable without their signature light cones, but I think a character plus the light cone is going to be very much similar to how Honkai Impact 3rd operates, and it will create a complete version of the character. This character will be able to perform things that they couldn't do without the light cone, and I think that's very much said so for a few of the characters that we have access to right now. Of course, that's just my theory though. You know, we'll see whenever the game fully releases and I have more information to test these things at level 80. Next up is going to be completing week 1's rewards before the first reset. This is going to help you maximize your account early on. What I mean by that is whenever it's similar to Genshin, you have your dailies, and then there's a little thing that pops up like a progress bar, and it gives you 1 through 8, 1 through 6, 1 through 12, whatever the case may be. These are all items that'll be great for you. And towards the later half of this, once you start to get towards the gold looking icons, those are going to be great. These are awesome items that you can only get limited resources of. So being able to clear this throughout week 1 is going to be phenomenal. Now in the simulated universe, for instance, you're going to be able to repeat world 1 once you can clear it the first time. And if you can't clear world 2, that's okay. Just keep repeating world 1. The points stack up, and then finish it out daily so that you can get those points before the first reset. Combining with that, use the story characters while you have them. Some of the story characters like Himiko, for instance, when you get her early on, are going to allow you to beat bosses or sub-bosses in the game that you otherwise would not be able to beat. And that doesn't mean that these characters are broken for that moment. It means that they're so much more helpful than if you didn't have the characters. There's a horse boss in the beginning of the game that I was able to beat it without Himiko, but when I fought it with Himiko, I did not understand the game. And so I just didn't do it the right way. Afterwards, it was so much harder, and I'm like, man, if I had a fire unit that was strong, I would actually be able to handle this a lot more now that I understand how to play the game. And that probably goes into my biggest point here that I'm going to talk about to save everybody the most trouble. Again, this mostly goes towards the people who do not have experience when it comes to playing turn-based RPGs. But as of right now, this applies to everybody because I've seen tons of you do it. I've seen tons of content creators do it. I've seen streamers do it. I've seen streamers promote it. I've even seen streamers talk about how the game is so easy, you can just leave everything on auto. Then they get clapped and they start complaining about the game. Do not rush through this game. Don't feel the need to speed through fights. I don't care if it's a boss fight. I don't care if it's a mini fight. I don't care if it's a small mob. Don't rush through the game. I say this as if I'm somebody's father talking to you. Take your time to learn the game. It is not a rush. There's no race. You don't have to beat your friend to the next boss. It's not one of those games. I know it seems simple and obvious to everyone, but I promise you it is really not that obvious. A lot of new players to the genre don't understand that they can choose what to do at all times. Just like another video that I have where I say a lot of this game, if in fact everything in this game that is not a RNG aspect, is in your control. It is like playing chess. If I can set myself up into a position to sweep the boss in 2 turns, but it takes 1 turn of setup, then I need to pay attention and observe how I can get to that point during XYZ battle. Not every battle is going to be the same. Yes, enemies, especially bosses, will have patterns just like in every RPG. Similar to Persona, right? When you're fighting Kamoshida, every so often, it seems random that Kamoshida is going to drink from his slurp cup, right? And then restore his HP with on hanging out in the cup. But it's not random. It's when you do a set amount of damage or a set number of turns pass that he's lost so much damage. The enemy is a computer and the computer is an AI. It functions through a set number of commands or a set input trigger. It's all coding at the end of the day. No action, however, will always be the same. Sometimes your healer's gonna get focused on and then she dies before she can heal you. Sometimes your aggro doesn't work and then your DPS gets clapped because you couldn't pull aggro. Sometimes the aggro does work and then the boss is just too strong, so your shielder dies. There are things within your control in the game and there are things outside of your control in the game. And like I said, that just happens to be RPG. It's the game we play. But at the end of the day, if you're patient, you play smart, you will win games. Pay attention to your skill points and learn skill point management. That is one of the biggest things, not only to how to play the game and how to battle, but also how to build your team. And with that, those would be the biggest mistakes I would tell anybody to avoid in Honkai Star Rail. feel free to send this to whichever newer players or friends you have that are getting into the game. Share this because I know that it's going to help a lot of people, because these particular tips, especially that last one, is going to be huge for players that just, well, don't really feel comfortable with turn-based combat. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, do feel free to like, subscribe if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content from me, and if you want to check out the streams, well, links down below. Join the Discord because it's pinned in the comments and we've been growing members. I can't say my usual outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Smell you later.